Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Book Club of California's live online program titled Yesterday's Specials, a selection of rare restaurant menus and cocktail lists presented by Liz Pollock. We're going to be getting started in just a moment or so. We have a lot of people registered for this event, so we're going to give them a little time to come on in from the waiting room. So sit back, relax, and we will be getting started shortly. Thanks. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Book Club of California's live online program for Monday, June 14th. If you're here for yesterday's specials, a selection of rare restaurant menus and cocktail lists, you're in the right place. We will be getting started in just a moment or so. We still have some folks entering from the waiting room, but we are going to be getting started shortly because there's a lot of great slides that we want to share with you. So just sit back for a second or two, relax. We do appreciate your patience. We will be getting started in just a minute. Thanks. Now it's a few minutes past the top of the hour, so we're going to get started. We'll let participants join us as we're in progress. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Book Club of California's live online program titled Yesterday's Specials, a selection of rare restaurant menus and cocktail lists, 1940 to 1990. A live online presentation by Liz Pollock, author, collector, and bookseller. My name is Kevin Kosick, and I'm the Executive Director for the Book Club of California, and it's my pleasure to welcome you and host this webinar. We have more than 155 people registered for this presentation tonight, so for those of you who are new to us, the Book Club of California is a nonprofit, member and donor supported organization dedicated to preserving and promoting the history of the book and the book arts. Oftentimes we do that with a focus on the literature and history of California and the West. The book club publishes limited edition books, a scholarly journal, and keepsakes. We host a year-round series of exhibitions and programs like the one this evening on topics including fine printing, design, typography, bookbinding, collecting, and much, much more. If you're not a member, or if your membership has lapsed and you're interested in what we do, please consider joining our century-long tradition. Our membership dues are modest, but the benefits are many. We simply cannot do the work that we do without the support of our members. So I encourage you to visit our website at bccbooks.org to join or to donate to the Book Club of California. And now for tonight's program and our presenter. The program, Yesterday's Specials, a selection of rare restaurant menus and cocktail lists, is presented by Liz Pollock, author, collector, and bookseller. Liz Pollock has owned the Cook's Bookcase since 2007 and specializing in unique books and ephemera on cookery and wine. She is a member of the Book Club of California. Way to go, Liz. She's also a member of the Independent Online Booksellers Association, the Northern California Independent Booksellers Association, the Women's National Book Association San Francisco chapter, the Santa Cruz County Chamber of Commerce, and the James Beard Foundation, among many others. She teaches classes in cocktail history for Cabrillo Community College in Aptos, California. That's one of my favorite factoids about Liz. Liz and her family live in Santa Cruz, and her book titled The Lost Restaurants of Santa Cruz County is one in the series titled The American Palate, published by the History Press in 2020. She collects vintage cocktail menus, wine lists, bartender manuals, instruction booklets, and ephemera relating to saloons, bars, and nightclubs. Tonight, Liz will discuss many of the historic changes in menu design over time. One of the several decisions that any restaurateur would make is the choice of artwork and graphics that promoted the desired ambiance and the special personality of the venue. So lunch and dinner selections, the prices, the wine list, and the specialties of the house. They were all carefully planned to help the employees be ready when the customers and tourists arrive, but also communicate directly to the customers and tourists. Liz will share some of the problems and the predicaments faced by restaurant owners during World War II, where a self-imposed paper shortage and financial restrictions forced restaurant menus through radical design changes. Liz is also going to share examples of some incredible menus from famous restaurants, including Bimbo's 365, Trader Vic's, the Ambassador Hotel, the Brown Derby, the Waldorf Astoria, the Four Seasons, the Russian Tea Room, and many, many more. So if you have questions for our presenter, please use the chat and the Q&A function in Zoom. We should have time towards the end of the hour to take some questions, and we'll curate those questions from the Q&A and the chat. And now it is my great pleasure to introduce Liz Pollock and pass over the controls for tonight's webinar. Liz, it's all yours. Take it away.
Thank you, Kevin, and thank you, the Book Club of California, for allowing me to present to you some of my collection of menus. I want to thank you for your leadership in the history of the book and your support for people in fine press and for booksellers as well. Whenever I come up to San Francisco, I like to stop into the book club and visit the library and see some friends. And it's a very inspiring place. I'm hungry, I'm thirsty, I want to look at some menus. Excuse me. This is me when I return to eat at restaurants. I cannot wait. This is the Hurricane in New York City. It's about 1944. It was, I love the line, I love the composition. The artwork is by Wesley Morse, who famous for being kind of a nudie, cutie kind of guy, somewhat like Vargas. But his main claim to fame is his illustration for the Copacabana and Carmen Miranda. This is a postcard, by the way. Here we are, Bimbo's 365. I don't know the name of the artist. I would love to know if anybody knows. It's just so eye-catching. It's a large quarto. It's a single sheet that's been folded. You can see that Bimbo's is on, it's still there on Columbus Avenue, it's modernized. I love it. I'm gonna go around San Francisco, New York, Florida, Hollywood. I hope you don't mind me flying around. The Gramercy Oyster Bar and Grill, it's also a one sheet folded. I've chosen to show you the regulation paragraph from the Office of Price Administration that you can see on a lot of menus during World War II. This is a poster, large size. It was sent out to all restaurant businesses that they imposed a strict policy. They were to document the number of meals they sold in December of 1942 and stick to that price. That would be to level the playing field for businesses. I live in Santa Cruz. Those of you in San Francisco, we're lucky to have the bountiful ocean nearby, which was fantastic. We're lucky to have be able to have fresh produce and fruit. But the restaurant owners were given 20 to 30% more ration coupons in order for them to get flour and sugar and continue their signature baked goods. But it's a very stressful time, of course. So that poster folded out. This is very rare. It's by signed by Carol Cornelius of the Cornelius Cafe. Excuse me. I don't know what happened there. There we go. And he managed to fill out all 40 lines. And so very difficult when your loved ones are fighting overseas. Very difficult to keep your business going. This is how big it is. It's gigantic, and had to be done. This is a lovely menu. The illustration is a watercolor by Maurice Logan. The shipping and any kind of transportation genre is very popular in collecting menus. It was a Matson line from San Francisco to Honolulu. This is from the New York location on 7th and 50th Street in 1937. Had a big review, big floor show. A lot of these restaurant owners kept their old menu and just conformed. This is one of the menus that is from Kansas City, Missouri. The braid is silk. There's a gold details, multiple pages. This is actually the very spot, the very corner in the Hotel Phillips where President Truman had his haberdashery, by the way. And for the, what's interesting for me is that printers, local print shops in San Francisco area, in LA, in Manhattan, they considered restaurant jobs as steady work. Business cards, receipt books, menus, cocktail napkins, wine lists, placemats when linen was too expensive to launder, bibs, matchbooks, and the printers consider this as a bread and butter job, if you will. Sorry. In addition, the restaurant owner could order plastic sleeves to put the menu in, made it easier to wipe off the grease and the grime at night. And some of these matchbooks had little maps, and some of the menus also had small maps for the customer to get where they're going. Here we are, Toffanetti, Chicago, and New York. Use an illustration. It's a single sheet. There's a victory breakfast. The breakfast being the heavy interest in breakfast for the in war work. The typed menu on the left. This is 1944. The wonderful Russian tea room, listing caviar and lavish selection. This is from 1961, and also a one sheet, but they kept it simple. This is from 1970, the Russian tea room. The cover is glossy. It's a large quarto. The front cover illustration is by Richard Giglio. Place to be seen. A lot of powerful lunches here. We're back in California. In 1960, well, throughout his life, Ansel Adams enjoyed going to Yosemite. It's a beautiful photograph of Half Dome. Down in LA, McHenry's Tale of Cock. I appreciate how much information they crammed into this one page. Red and green, they just did it just right. It balances out. This menu is from 1955. It was the place was known for its impeccable service. It's printed by the Lord Menu Company, Menu Printing Company. And this is another thing that I'm concentrating on is the name of the press and the printers and their small devices that they use. Stage Deli. I once went in there for a sandwich. It was 75 years of being a neighborhood favorite. They had, it's a large quarto. They had they sponsored a matzo ball soup, kind of a contest. Not eating it, but making it, the recipe. And the inside is kind of interesting because you could order a specialty named after celebrity like Bette Midler, Dudley Moore, Nipsey Russell, etc. It was featured in The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, by the way, Stage Deli. I bring back the Hurricane, not just because I love that cartoon illustration, but because it was printed by the Blackstone Company in New York. Not very often am I seeing these, but I've enjoyed it. In Pasadena, Steve Romer had been an assistant manager of the ship room in the Huntington Hotel, which is now the Langham. But he had his own restaurant in 1955. It's a elephantine folio. I like the graphics a lot. Waldorf Astoria. Also elephantine folio. This is this was featured a fashion show, some travel and automobile companies contributed. It was a banquet benefit for the French hospital in New York on 30th Street. And the whole thing was, of course, very organized, and it was, the director was Mrs. Eisenhower. And that's the verso. If you see a famous person in a restaurant, it's understandable they don't want to be bothered while they're eating, but some are just really open and they're glad to see you. In this case, Joe Montana was featured with the Chateau Montelena winery in Calistoga. It was kind of an interesting connection there, because that winery in 2008 was in the movie Bottle Shock. And he owns a winery and I think some like olive trees, olive pressing. We go back to Manhattan. This is 1957. This is inside the Rockefeller Center. The Forum of the 12 Caesars, and that's about, the illustration is about maybe 3 inches, 2.5 inches big. It's in relief. It was the height of splendor. Nothing, no detail was overlooked. To the interior design was by William Pullman. And there's the menu. So this is 1957, very lavish. They served, the wine buckets were in the shape of centurion helmets. The Four Seasons was designated an outstanding restaurant. This is from the 60s, printed on rice paper. One of the very first restaurants to present seasonally fruits and vegetables and meats and fowl of the season. And there was a wading pool in the dining room. And it's where a lot of powerful people met for lunch and dinner. And James Beard consulted on many of the dishes served. It's beautiful. It's a slim elephantine folio. Longchamp was had a lot of locations. This one in New York, you can see where the chef added little paper tabs for the specials. I'm interested in how chefs and managers, they sit down, they cross things out, they use whiteout, they use red pen, black pen, add, go up a price. Trader Vic's, this is from the 80s, San Francisco. They used a little plastic, it's temporary, but until they could go to the printers again, they did what they changed the prices the way they wanted to. San Francisco. I love this composition, the stripes, and it's just mesmerizing to me. This is the Yamato. He designed it so when you're sitting on the ground, there were cushioned backs, which was very nice. There was also a Yamato in LA. Means great harmony, by the way. And printed by the Lord Menu Company. In New Orleans, this is from 1947. This is still in existence, La Louisiane. I love this menu because it illustrates to me how precious these menus are, that you keep them. Thank you so much for the wonderful birthday, signed Doris Gallant Holland. And she passed, or whoever passed the menu around the table, people signed it, she kept it. I mean, it's adorable. Sticking to New Orleans, Pat O'Brien's, I mean, many proprietors, even now, market their souvenir glass or little shot glass, whatever, as a way for the customer to carry something home. I have a hurricane from the Tonga room in San Francisco. And the change, of course, is when the recipe is in the menu itself, like the pineapple surprise, the coco loco, the tiki bowl or the scorpion bowl, with kind of humorous threats of the strong effect. Even photographs of what the tumbler or glassware looks like. Tiki Rage has been around for a long time now. I got the bug. I love it. This is a cocktail menu that's printed by the Martin printing company from the Ambassador. It's small. It's a small octavo, one sheet, nicely coated. I kind of blew it up, but it's a postcard from the Coconut Grove from the 60s. Lots of music, beautiful music and dancing, really a night out, and memorable evenings. The Brown Derby. I love how the map is on the front. There is not a name for the illustrator of the map, and this is 1959. I encourage anyone who, I'm gonna kind of do a plug for my friend George Geary, who wrote a fabulous book called LA's Legendary Restaurants. And it's the definitive book on the Brown Derby and elsewhere in LA. Some liquor companies handed out coasters to establishments, bars, and hotels, like the Screwdriver on the right. Carnelia Brothers made their own. They were known for their clam chowder on the Santa Cruz Wharf, and perfect for customers to take home. In Hallandale, Florida, there was the Opera House. They, from 1960s, they managed to cram as much as they could in this gigantic menu. It is elephantine plus, and it's wide, it opens out wide. This could either be Pennsylvania or New York City. I haven't figured that out yet. I haven't determined that. There, besides the automat, but there also were waitresses at some of the locations. Certainly this is 1940s, but not sure whether it's Pennsylvania or Manhattan. I love it. The Cafe Lido. It's also on Columbus Avenue. The verso, the back page of this has little bits of glue, and this is so fascinating for me to come across scrapbooks where people loved going to these places. They remembered, I went out on a date with so and so, and they glued it in. Well, what's so interesting about this, if I may show you, is that it's tab indexed, here we go, but on the inside, so you have wine and spirits on the inside. That's interesting. So these scrapbooks to me are like an early Pinterest that, people like something and they glued it in. They want to look at it. This is before my time. The Hotel St. Francis, we go there to see their gingerbread castle or gingerbread artwork at Christmas time. But this is from, this is from the 40s actually, when I show you the inside. But in any case, it was the old mural room, just decorated by Albert Herder in 1913 with 7 murals comprising the Pageant of Nations. It was taken down in 1970, and unfortunately, something else was built up. But on the inside, this is really interesting to me because they kept the old menu. They had to do the OPA, so they gave it back to the printer. He used a different ink and printed out what was necessary for every menu. Also, what's interesting also is they offer an Inglenook, red Pinot Noir. So this is 1943. Another thing that printers printed out was the bib, and people could take them home. In Palm Springs, it's only a couple-hour drive from LA and Hollywood. It's about from 1950s. Nate's featured homemade beet borscht, the matzo ball soup, stuffed cabbage, of course, corned beef. And the verso says, "We're so pleased you came." This is rare. It's from 1950. It's a Trader Vic's from Honolulu. And it listed Almaden wines. This is a tabletop tent on your table here. The Hawaii Kai was on Broadway between 50th and 51st Streets, had a huge floor show. And when you bought the drink, that tumbler, the mug, you can take that home with you. Johnny Kwong had a gigantic, huge restaurant in Salt Lake City called the Hawaiian. And he also featured Take Home, which I would have appreciated this a few months ago in the pandemic. So the fleet of vans could come to your home and bring you delicious Polynesian food. This is 1960s. This is the kind of thing where it folded up, easy to mail, easy to take home. You could mail it to your friends, family. This is, I don't know why this came out so big, but in any case, it's a business card. And the Tiki bug was even in Barcelona. It was one of those mailers, trifold in Connecticut. The Squire Cafe, this is from 1945. This is in LA. And here we have a chef or manager just really get angry about not making enough money. And so he raised all the prices. And so I love this just to see that he's made up his mind. He's got to make more money. And so you've got the OPA regulation there, and now it's time to change the menu. Right around the corner, maybe like a block and a half from the Huntington Library, was the Merino House. The outside is a like a velveteen. You can see the owner put little clips on the specials there. It's about late 1940s. In Pasadena, on Lake Avenue, there was Bullock's, and there was this coral room. It's a beautiful, beautiful graphics by Annette Honeywell. She also did the murals inside Bullock's and along the hallways. She also painted compacts for makeup. And this building was placed on the National Historic Register in 1996. Pig and Whistle, Melody Lane down in LA. This is one of those mailers. It's actually folio size, but if somebody wanted their friends and family to know they were there as a tourist, that's fantastic. Good promotion. Rainbow Room, of course, in Rockefeller Center on the 65th floor. This is a one sheet. It's about late 1940s. There's a kind of heavy-handed corkage charge. I think a little strange. I like this as a single color. I like that. I also like at the very bottom of the, where it says sandwiches, steak dinners, and scrambled dogs. And it's understandable that you'd want to charge for a corkage fee. I understand that, but they're kind of hit you over the head with it. Back in Palm Springs, we're at the Riviera Hotel. This is the pool menu. a single sheet. So wine list, the covers are velveteen, and there's the Bodoni Limited printer. I would like to say that the Palm Springs Historical Society has a fantastic online library. I recommend it. So not all restaurants are brick and mortar. They don't all have menus you can have in your hand. But Mother Vester Brown in Santa Cruz for about 15 years served incredible soul food for people who read her ad in the local newspaper and word of mouth. This was a Hawaiian room in the Hotel Lexington, late 1940s. There's a famous floor show. There we have the long description of a cocktail. It's a really nice little die cut. And it was there from 1937 to 1966. Akron, Ohio. This is a folio, the Tangier. It was famous for its fantastic food, but also, and this is, it's still in existence. It's known for its world famous music and cabaret. It was a local showplace for top name entertainers such as Tina Turner, The Temptations, Fats Domino, Jerry Lee Lewis, and James Brown, and it's still going strong. We go down to Miami. The Aloha had an extensive selection of Polynesian and Cantonese dishes. I'm interested in it as well because the printer's device there on the Verso, the RJ Artistic Illustrated Menu Company. I love these darling little cocktail napkins. They're paper and they're around from maybe late 50s, early 60s from Santa Cruz Hotel and Russell's Colonial Inn. I can't help myself. I had to include this because 75th birthday of Pink's was 7 years ago, but it shows the continuation of ordering something that it was a celebrity dog. And then instead of a description, it had a photograph. It's a fantastic place. All right, maybe some of you attended this dinner at the Roxburgh, at the University Club, Powell in California in San Francisco. It was 2001. This menu was printed by the Nova Press, by William P. Barlow, and it's one of 100 copies. It's a slim quarto. Another one of my favorite things, I love to look through these, is the 12 keepsakes that have a facsimile of the menu inside. It is printed in 1950 by the Book Club of California, one of 850 copies. It was printed by Ward Ritchie and was edited by Joseph Henry Jackson. And of the 12 writers, it also includes something with MFK Fisher. So that's very nice. Perfect condition, by the way. It's from 1958. Train travel, any kind of airline, train, ship travel is very popular. It lists the valet service, press your trousers, sell you a deck of cards, but no beverages after midnight. Okay, I include this because it's ridiculous, and I'm sure you've been handed one of these, the big, thick, leatherette sort of things. Sometime in the 70s, there's no name, but I include it because this is an opportunity, a potential for printers. The restaurant owner asks them, the wineries, to give me your new selection here. This one also offered Matousse Rosé and Blue Nun and so forth. This is some of my collection of rare matchbooks of Santa Cruz that I own. Of course, California was the first state to ban smoking in restaurants in 1995. I'm a certified mixologist. I put in my years of wiping ashtrays, so I'm very glad that that happened. Many of these matchbooks also had maps. I've said that before, but I wanted to repeat that. It's a matchbook from the Charles Dickens restaurant. It was in Aptos, 1974 to 1983. Unusual. The slightly kosher Irving's Thunder Trading Company and Frontier Deli in Santa Cruz. I choose this because it's the most gigantic, almost poster size menu, and he catered as well. It's still a restaurant, but under another name called the Crepe Place. But this is pretty famous for his sandwiches. Also in Santa Cruz in the 40s, just around the corner from the boardwalk, Sloppy Joe's. They featured, it was just a one sheet folded. They featured pig's knuckles and very plain, cheap food. That's fine. Get something, take it to the beach. The Poodle Dog is one of my favorite times in history. These are menu holders. The lady on your right is about 6 inches high. It's another fantastic display of how ingenious and creative Camille Malabo was. This is a working menu, a working menu. 1918, it's all handwritten on a very thin oilcloth. He's playing around with wines and the sequence there. The verso is kind of an emotional photograph that is mounted of the battle in Verdun. It was a 10-month battle. This is a 1919. I'm just showing you this because this man was an artist, and he wanted everything to be done creatively and artistically, not machine done. It was his private home address, and he's honoring his friend Colonel Charles Black on his return from France. This is another menu, 1921. It's kind of interesting that the smaller circle oval opens out to the bottles of wine. A die cut from Chicago restaurant called Little Jack's. It's just 5 inches tall. It is populated by a lot of people in Chicago. They did a lot of government lunches, had banquets there. Another example of a die cut, this is 1979, the Hit and Run Club. The Baltimore Orioles lost to the Pittsburgh Pirates in the World Series 4-3. I like this. This is from 1935. I like it. It's clean, it's simple. The lines are great. It's just a small octavo. Lays it all out there for you. Nothing fancy. Randall Graham in Santa Cruz. This is a catalyst. This is courtesy of the Museum of Art and History in Santa Cruz. This is handwritten. And it was one of the original Fern bars in 1969. He liked to add sprouts to all his sandwiches. So he had his first catalyst in St. George, and then he found out that their bowling alley was for sale down the street on Pacific, and so he bought that. It's a West Coast music destination. In Capitola by the Sea, there was a famous Saba Club and Caribbean Ballroom. This is courtesy of the Capitola Historical Museum, which is a wonderful place to go if you're ever in Capitola. The owners, father and son, imported spears and canoes and sailfish, taxiderm, those blue glass balls, everything to help you get in the mood, watch the sunset and have a Mai Tai. Postcards were also a great way for restaurant owners to help the customer come back. We want you to come back. There's the Fable Restaurant and the Hotel Drake, the Del Mar on Buchanan Street, the Paris Restaurant on O'Farrell, the Riviera on Stockton, and just for the heck of it, Henrique's in Chicago. And the reason is because you top right, there's that long dining room. I love it. On Restaurant Row in LA was the greatest place, Laurie's, and this is from late 50s, early 60s. There are 2 little postcards that are in addition to that and show the chef as he's carving the prime rib. I interviewed Sam Zanny in San Francisco. His father is pictured here in front of his many wedding cakes. Zanzi's Rocky Falls was a fantastic place here in Santa Cruz. It actually had a waterfall. It's now a moose lodge. But in any case, Sam continued baking his father's recipe for cheesecake, which had no crust. It was just the cheesecake. He was on Ocean Avenue for about 45 years. They had to give it up because of the pandemic, but he was a wonderful man to talk with. The Chamber of Commerce, the visitors centers did a lot of promotion for restaurants, as well as travel guides, such as this Duncan Hines, which is from 1946, but also restaurant reviews in newspapers. For instance, Herb Cain's friendship with Victor Bergeron. I picture this, I share this with you, of the funicula or outdoor elevator from one of my very favorite restaurants in Capitola called the Shadowbrook. And it was my honor to interview Ted Burke. It has the most wonderful ambiance. great, great food. It's right there at the San Lorenzo River. And he was one of the first restaurant owners who embraced the computer in the late 70s, who not just inventory, but also embraced the internet and the websites. And this is what restaurant owners have to do. They just have to get on board with social media. They have to be open to change, but I like to look to the past for inspiration. I like to look at a lot of cocktails descriptions. And I mean, I'm sure you've gone into some cocktail bars and it's like an herb garden there on the bar. They add in so many little garnishes, but it's important to know the classics. And I also like the idea that restaurant websites have an about page with the history of what families used to own the place, what the menus look like. I hope to see you in Santa Cruz. I own a bookstore. If you come to visit, I will roll out the red carpet for you. Here's a front cover of my book. And this is a picture taken of me about 2 in the morning in 1985. So I'm ready for your questions and your comments.
That was great, Liz. That was really interesting. And what a collection that you have that you shared with us, including some of that really wonderful art, all that great illustration, and some of those unique items, so the unique like writing on the menus, autographs by stars or whatever it was, but also the kind of just notes from family and friends that went out for special occasions. That kind of stuff is really interesting, and little snapshots of our times and people's lives. And
very true.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you have some of those things, because it makes me think about, well, first of all, you took us LA, Chicago, New York, Florida, San Francisco, like around the world in some of these other things. And you took us to like upscale places for fine dining, casual fare, just cocktail menus, probably from cocktail bars, a couple of takeout places as well. And, my first question for you is like, that's like a broad range of all kinds of stuff. Do you have like a particular focus for your collecting? Is there something you're really looking for that kind of speaks out to you and go, I need that for my collection?
If it's a cocktail menu, I want to see the ingredients. I like the names. Something that appeals to my funny bone. And I love the graphics.
Yeah.
So amazing. It's just amazing. And I love it. And something that is poster quality, and many of the menus today that we see, they don't. I want them to look back on the older menus and get inspired.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah,
I love the idea of the kind of, you look for the whimsy kind of speaks to you, right? Whatever that might be, or something classic that just really speaks to you. That's a common thing for people in their collecting. Like, it just spoke to me and I needed to have it to fit
and be a repeat customer. See, that's what you have to have as a restaurant owner. It's important to hire the best employees, and train them and give them incentive to stay with you. I wanted to mention one thing. I didn't mention this, but in March of 2020, the American Beverage ABC, they relaxed let's see what it's called. Excuse me for a moment. It's called a notice. Sorry. It's called a notice of regulation relief. In other words, for the business owners who have liquor licenses, the enforcement of selling booze off-site was relaxed. You know, that's why you were seeing the kind of rubbery pouches of lemon drop and martini and daiquiri and stuff. And that was, I mean, there were rules that they had to serve food that was prepared at the restaurant, and then you were allowed to sell bottles of wine because the ABC understood that this is a catastrophe.
Yeah, extraordinary times calls for
it's extraordinary. When is this ever going to happen again? Or when has it happened before? So I was glad to see that that relief. That was very nice. I also enjoy the whole concept of curbside, that it reminds me of car hops and drive-ins, you know, where the restaurant owner, maybe the dining room was full, where they considered their parking lot an extension of the dining room.
Yeah, part of the establishment. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so, you know, it's interesting you bring up the pandemic and its effect on, you know, and restaurants and how restaurants are managed. And someone in the chat, I'll go find their name real quickly, also asked about, I think it was Mary Ellen, and maybe somebody else, how the pandemic is actually impacting menus specifically going forward. You go some places you go to eat now, you scan a QR code and the menu comes up on your phone. So there is no physical menu to kind of take with you. I mean,
they had a transition from their website design to a mobile friendly menu. And I think I'm going to say a name, DoorDash. Sorry. So all of the delivery, it's really changed a lot. Really changed the business. But you know, like I say, I'm glad. I'm going to be so glad to get back into restaurants.
Do you think menus will come back once you're back in the restaurant, or are they?
Oh, I hope so.
Yeah, because menus are, we'll talk a little bit about, there's a couple of questions about the actual production. I loved how you pointed out some of the printers and the people, because you don't think about that when you think about a menu, like who printed this? And did that printer also print the coaster, right? Or in the paper napkin, or back in the day, matchbooks. I mean, there were I kept making notes of all the things that are printed in a restaurant. It's, you know, bibs, mailers, the postcards, tabletop tents. Like there's a ton of printing that happens in
go in a restaurant and there's a gigantic brandy snifter of matchbooks. Well, it's a perfect, that was like little Twitter of you know, take it home in the car. Oh yeah, I got to go back. But I have a PDF that I made of some of the resources that I put together. One of them is the California Museum. I'm sorry, forget what that was. The California. Here we go. It was a library of the International Typographies Union. And so a lot of these printers are listed in there. I think it's interesting to go back and see what are they doing now, what happened to them. Some of the printers, if I may, were George Rice and Sons in LA, the Blackstone Company, Bodoni Limited, the Little Print in New Rochelle, Lord Printing Company, and that's with the LA Public Menu. They have a lot of that. Migdal and Son in Ocean Park, which is Santa Monica. Nelson Piper, which is in LA. The RJ in Miami. And it's just a really fascinating connection. I was glad to see that.
Yeah. So there's a specific or particular question about the matchbooks that you showed. that are in your collection? Are they from a particular time period? Are they all local, or are they from all over the place?
30s and 40s.
Okay.
30s and 40s. There's a couple of Art Deco ones.
Hmm.
And I mean, I know somebody who collects swizzle sticks. You know, there's something for everybody to collect. Right? You know, the little monkey and the mermaid that sits back on your glass. You know,
Oh yeah, the little plastic, yeah. Or coasters. I know people who collect bar coasters and things like that. So how do you store your collection, your menus or your other ephemera? Are they?
It's a good question. There's a local art store that I get my portfolios from. And I try to keep them in order. And I like to go to book fairs. I like to exhibit at book fairs. And, you know, I'm one of those people, it's okay to look at my stuff. It's not too precious that you're gonna, you know, worry the dust jacket or something. Menu's a menu. It's gonna be seen and used and fingered and.
Yeah, it was meant to be handled, right? To be manipulated.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. There's a great question in
Slobbered
here about.
on, if you would.
What was that?
Slobbered on, if you would. Spilled on. Yeah.
And some are slobbered on. There's a great question in here in terms of the kind of the evolution of the format of a menu. Someone had a great comment, like, why weren't blackboards with menus on them more common in the US? And there's another comment about the changing size. Like, they used to be huge menus, and then they morphed and they're small, and then they're die cut, or, you know, now they're virtual. Like, you know, what were some of those drivers that you think made those changes from the
Isn't that a great question? That's a fantastic question. And I think it's all to what the was the going style of the day. I know we took the kids to Paris, and yes, there were all these blackboard signs in chalk. It was fabulous. Every single one in Montmartre, and that was fun. The dry erase board is fairly new, but there were a lot of my friends when I worked at Adolph's Italian Family Restaurant for 5 years. A lot of my friends who were waiters and waitresses, you know, just to hear them rattle off the specials one table after the next for like 6 hours straight. It's difficult. It was hard, but it's a good question. How did they get from large to small?
Yeah. Well, and back, I think you kind of mentioned it was what was needed at the time, right? As your menu changes and the customers change, what you're communicating changes. And
it's interesting when it used to be when a restaurant changed hands, and I must have, in my research for my book, I must have gone through 1,000 fictitious business licenses. When they auctioned off the furniture, somebody passed away, their kids didn't want to take it on because it's an 18-hour day job. In the place where I worked at, I found some old menus stuffed into the back of between the wood and the cushion. And they're from the 50s. Yeah. And so how did those big menus get out? I mean, did somebody, you know, put them in their jacket?
You're reading ahead. That's my exact next question. Like, how did people collect take menus at the time, and what happens now? Like, I don't feel like I could go to a restaurant now and take a menu.
Oh my God. Right. Right. Well, and of course there were those scrapbooks like I described. You know, they put some rubber cement on the four corners of the menu and say, your father, I went there 20 years ago. You know. Right.
Yeah. Someone asks, is it acceptable to ask to purchase a menu from a restaurant?
Good idea.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Or take a picture of it. That's what people are going to be doing. They're
yeah.
going to Instagram or whatever right.
Right, along with your meal, right, or your dessert, you take a picture
Right.
of that and then the menu. But
Oh,
that doesn't get to the collectors, the people who
that's
want
funny.
to collect the ephemera. There's a
Right.
great comment in here from Chris, who says like his brother collects chopstick sleeves, the paper
Oh, my.
chopstick sleeves from restaurants. That's great because you can easily
Awesome.
take those, and that's so interesting and so
Well,
unique.
there is the Harley Spiller collection that was bought out by the, I think it's Ontario Museum in Canada. It's like 10,000 menus.
Oh wow,
I
yeah.
mean, you can kind of go crazy.
I think we have a number of, I looked at the people who attended this. We have a couple of people who are menu collectors who are here to kind of see your
Oh, good.
menus and see what
Good.
they have. And someone even mentioned that we had a virtual community meeting a few weeks ago with Henry Voigt, who has a huge menu collection. And I think one of the menus that he showed as part of that discussion, you also showed.
Oh,
So
that's
someone mentioned that, oh, we saw that in this other presentation a few weeks ago. So that
like
was,
minds think alike, right?
yeah, it was a
Good. Or
great
great
menu, right?
minds
If
think alike.
multiple people are collecting it, there's a reason to collect it. I love this. So we're going to be wrapping up in a second here. I think I got most of the questions, but I'm going to share all of these with you, and there might be a couple, that you'll answer and I can get back to some folks about.
Thank you.
Do you have a next slide which has your contact information on it, or am I making that up? Or is this your
I
last
think
slide?
I sent that to you.
Yeah, I have that, and because people are asking, like, the name of the bookstore, it's Cook's Bookcase, and the contact information. I'm going to send that out to everybody who was here, and even to those people who registered but couldn't make it. I'm going to send that detail, like how to contact Liz, where the store is, the website link, plus a link to all of the resources that you said you have and you gave. So if people want to do some additional reading, we have that link for everyone as well. But I do want to say that some of the great comments in here, like wonderful collection of ephemera, fascinating collection. This is my favorite. A superb collection driven by taste rather than by an obsessive need for completeness. Well done. I love that one. That's my favorite comment in here.
Thank you so much.
So yeah, it's great. They loved this menu. We're definitely going to come visit the bookshop from Oliver and Karen. Super job, Liz. Thanks so much. This was wonderful, is another comment. Oh, there is a specific question about your teaching. Are you currently offering classes in cocktails or cocktail history at the college? You do?
Yes, I am.
A little bit about what you're doing.
I have right. So Thursday, I have a class that I'm giving on cocktails at the Tiki bar. I'm featuring a lot of crazy zombie, scorpion. Look Out Below is one of the names. But also I give classes on cocktails of the 40s and 50s, the classic cocktails. So before you go crazy and add, a sprig of rosemary and all that balderdash, it's good to know, what a martini is, how to build a classic Bloody Mary, and then a sidecar, etc. And then 60s, 70s, 80s is a separate class as well. And I talk about rum being the chosen liquor, and then vodka marches in, and they takes over, and the industry, and then the history of saloons and all that.
Nice. Well, that'll be, I'm guessing they can find that when we send people to your website and all that.
Yes,
figure out how to get to all of those things. Also in there will be a link to how to buy this book that's up on your screen now. That's Liz's most recent book, which prompted us having a conversation and having you come on here. I'm going to squeeze in one last question, and then I'm going to wrap up with kind of what's next for the book club presentation. And there is a question and asked if you could speak to us a little bit about the Colonial Inn and the teacup. Do you know?
Thank you. Well, the Colonial Inn was Don Stephanie and Al Pardini, and it was in the 60s on Ocean Street. When you're coming into Santa Cruz, it's right there, and it was a fabulous, fabulous place. It was open till 2 in the morning. They had a seafood-orama on Friday nights, and of course, all the fresh seafood. They had music. They had, it was the place where restaurant owners, after they were done at their place, would come to hang out. And so that, you know, they could talk it over. Leo Stephanie, who I interviewed extensively for my book, his older brother Don was just a real gift of gab, kind of a just a magnetic personality. And all the sisters did the seafood-orama. Now the Teacup was owned by Don Yee, and it was at the on Pacific Front, at the corner there where Jamba Juice is right now. And is really a place that's irreplaceable. It a lot of atmosphere, a lot of Miss California shenanigans went on, a lot of intellectuals met there. And it was destroyed in the earthquake of 1989.
That's too bad. That's a little bit of a downer of the last story.
It was. I'm so sorry.
You can't control that.
But, you know, my book is about survival and how to bounce back. And that's what we're going to do with this pandemic. We're going to bounce back.
Yeah, I'm already seeing signs of the bounce back in the restaurant industry. Even you know, the day before some COVID restrictions are lifted, and tomorrow things hopefully will get, you know, back to kind of a new normal, right? The new whatever that is for us. So we're definitely seeing that come soon.
And the book club will be reopened.
We're working on our reopening. Don't push us too fast. We have to do some cleaning and get back in there first, but we'll be doing that shortly. There'll be an email out about that too, about resuming live in-person programs at the book club coming soon. So keep an eye out for that. So again, everybody is going to get an email with how to contact Liz, about the shop, how to get the book, all the resources and some of the things that she talked about today. Liz is down in Santa Cruz, right? That's where you are. So for those of you who are thinking you're going to jump into San Francisco and see Liz, she's down in Santa Cruz. So keep that in mind, but go to the website, which is cooksbookcase.com if you want to get a head start. And you can find out more about Liz and more about her collecting and her menus and her teaching and all that great stuff. But we're going to take this time to say thank you, Liz. This was so great.
Thank you, Kevin. And thank you, guests. Appreciate you listening in.
Yeah, thanks for sharing a really interesting collection with us. It's always great to see, you know, some of the jewels in people's collections. So we really appreciate that. And as Liz said, thank you, everyone, for attending this Book Club of California program. Please join us for our next online program. It's titled Strong Hearts and Healing Hands, Southern California Indians and Field Nurses, 1920 to 1950. A little California history program for you. That's going to be on Monday, June 21st from 5 to 6:15 p.m. here on Zoom. And it's going to be another live online presentation, but presented by Clifford Travser. He's an author and a distinguished professor of history and the Rupert Costo Chair in American Indian Affairs at the University of California, Riverside. You can register for that event online at bccbooks.org/programs or using the link in the weekly programs emails that you're probably already receiving from the book club. I'm going to have one parting thought, which was one of the best slides in your presentation. And it was about the Goddess of Love drink, which was one of my favorite slides. The mystery drink called the Goddess of Love. And it basically said, if you're over 52, forget it. So that's the parting thought for that drink. Oh, well, if you're over 52, the Goddess of Love is not for you. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. Thanks again, Liz. Everybody have a wonderful evening. Be well and take care of yourself. And we'll see you here at another book club program soon. Thanks.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Good night.